Good morning. You can't. Sometimes you just can't win. Either it's got a skip in the middle, or it's got that guillotine chop at the end. I'm gonna have to go check out some of the other versions I have of that intro. Sorry, folks. Sorry, put you through that hungar wherever you are. GM Bloodworth asked me to collab on this one, and I'm more than happy to do so. For a bunch of reasons, we'll get into those. Why does my channel, our channel, my son and I, why do we focus on old school tabletop RPGs? Because if we don't, no one else will, and you'll be barraged with a non-stop deluge of whatever the next new shiny thing is. And as you notice, or might notice, I've got some old school games here. I've got some new games here. I've got some old ones down there, there. And in the garage, and then downstairs in my study, I've got hundreds, literally hundreds of role-playing games and hundreds of old school board games and miniature games and things like that. That if it wasn't for a channel like mine and others like ours, they would never see the light of day again. Look at my channel kind of like the island of misfit toys, if you will. We've got games and miniatures and things like that were absolutely fantastic when they came out. And they still are. It's just that with our constant desire for the next new thing to come down the pike, we often get distracted. And while Bloodworth was talking a lot about fantasy RPGs, I actually am probably a bigger fan of other genres. I'm always talking about genre mixing because there's so many genres out there, and I'm still perplexed why fantasy, the medieval, Middle Ages, Tolkien-esque, however you want to put it, sort of games get the lion's share when there are so many other ways and systems and genres out there to explore and to role play. That's one of the big things that got me into this hobby, was the ability to role play as different people and characters and in different worlds and situations. I'm a big fan of the rarer, the more obscure, the indie, the Euro games that people here in the States probably have either never heard of or have rarely heard of, maybe never even played. And I look at it like this: how many of you out there have a collection of video games, old video games, that you still go back and play, even though there might be a newer version or another new game out there, but you still go and you play some of these old video games from back in the day with the emulators or the Raspberry Pis and things like that, because those games were great then and they're still good today. People still play Battleship and Monopoly. Rules haven't changed. The format and not layout, but the design or the IP that it might be attached to, those things may change, but the basic rules for most of those games haven't changed, and they're still viable today. People still play Battleship and Monopoly and Parcheesi and the Game of Life and all those other games because they weren't broken then, they're not broken now. And I'm going to continue showing off games that, who knows, maybe someday I will get enough viewers, enough friends out there who want to try out one of those old games that they've only heard about, or maybe they come across a copy out in the wild and are like, hey, you know what, Shadow was right, this game really does sound like a lot of fun. I go back to all the way to White Box and Arduin and AD&D, but that's just about, and Savage Swords recently, but that's about where my fantasy RPG collection kind of stops. I don't really own a lot of other systems, but I do own a lot of things that can be incorporated into those systems that I'm still running or still might run. But for the most part, I'm looking at or looking forward to playing games, like the new Arduin when it comes out. Some Traveler, any edition is fine with me except GURPS, and the new 5e, because that just goes against everything the Traveler was about, and maybe the D20 version. I don't see the point. The game was perfect the way it was and really didn't need much tweaking to fix anything in it. I played a lot of Chill. I would love to play Chill again versus Call of Cthulhu. I'm kind of Cthulhu'd out, kind of bored and tired of it. We really burned it out as a community. We really kind of ran that into the ground. When there's plushies of Cthulhu and Hastur, you know we overdid it, at least in my opinion. Gamma World, love that game. Another thing you might notice is a theme with Gonzo. I like Gonzo games. I'm more into that than your traditional fantasy games. If you throw some Gonzo in there, you're getting my attention. But if you're like shying away from it, probably not what I'm looking for. Now, mind you, I'm spoiled. I've played more games than most people I've ever met, more than any 10 people I've probably ever met, and in doing so, I've also burnt out a lot of things. So I'm looking for the odd, the unusual, the broken, the unheard of. Other games I'm a big fan of. Top Secret. Nobody wants to play that one. The second edition of Top Secret was by far the best espionage game ever produced, but you're not going to find 10 people in the United States right now who want to play it. Villains and Vigilantes, again, my desert island game. If I could only bring one game with me on a desert island, or I'm going off to the moon, I'd bring that one and a couple of D20s, I think is all you need, or D10s, and I'd be set for life. I could run any game, any genre with those 47 pages from the second edition V&V. Other games I have in my collection, I hate to be the hipster, but apparently that's where I fall. I think I get that from my favorite band, being Blue Oyster Cult, who literally went out of their way to try and not get as famous as some of the bigger people by playing as Soft White Underbelly. Oops, secrets out. It's just so that they could play small gigs, more intimate arenas, and find out who their real fans were and get to meet these people and not have to be rushed off stage like some of the big superstars of the era. They clearly could have been if they had chased that sort of fame, but that's not what they wanted. They wanted to be underground. I like my games underground as well, and when they become really, really, really big, I tend to not enjoy them as much. I know that's like counterproductive. You'd think that you want to play, you want to have more people, but I don't want to play with just any old Tom, Dick, and Harry, your lowest common denominator player who just is a tourist, just passing through, not really in it for the long haul. The same approach I go to with my games. I want a long game. I want a commitment of being able to play this game and really, run the game through its paces, see what it can do at every step of the way, especially the higher levels, which baffles me why people don't want to play into those higher levels and really experience that. I know it's harder and requires a different frame of mind to run them and to play them, but if you've ever been in one, tell me it wasn't one of the better games you played. When you can run a character all the way up to a glorious death or a well-deserved retirement, to me that's the absolute height of expectation in a role-playing game. And I hope to be able to run as many people as I can through those kinds of games and situations. Not going to give it to you. You got to earn it. But if you do, the rewards will be beyond your wildest dream. So that's where I stand and this channel stands when it comes to role-playing games. Of course, we do a lot of other things here. We talk about a lot of other things. Our live streams invariably go into conspiracy theories and politics and morality and things like that. We do a lot of painting miniatures for various games and talking about miniature war games and miniature skirmish games and starship battle games when we get the chance, things like that. Of course, the odd craft video, which we haven't done, but we've got about a half a dozen of those in the works for this year, and we'll be bringing back some of that for you guys as well, making really cool stuff out of, you know, junk, essentially garbage, things that were on their way to the trash can, but you pick it up and you're like, this would make a great fill in the blank. That's kind of how we got our start, was doing things like that, because I wanted to teach my son that, you know, sometimes you can recycle something for your games and not just throw it in the garbage and add to the landfills, and make a really cool piece of terrain or a miniature, a monster, something like that, to enhance your gaming experience on the table. My son, when he runs the games for his friends, some of the things that are on the table are things that we made from scratch or from other things to make the game that much more enjoyable. But you know, that's where we stand here. I'm not a really big fan of 99% of all the games that have come out in the last 25 years. To be brutally honest, the ones that I show off here have had something special about them, in my opinion. And trust me, I've seen and read just about any game you can mention, and sometimes I don't need but 5 minutes to thumb through the book and go, never going to use it, never going to run it, never going to play it. But I'm also probably never going to get rid of it. So if you've got some games out there that you're tired of and you don't want, give old Shadow a call. I'll give you a fair price for it if I don't already have it. And who knows, maybe even if I do have it, I might want extras. I've got multiple copies of various games so that when my son moves off, he can take some stuff with him, D&D and Gamma World, Star Frontiers, things like that. If he wanted to play them, there you go, here's your traveling set. I'll have to wait till I kick the bucket to get the rest of his inheritance, and hopefully that won't be anytime soon. Speak of the devil, there he is. I'm going to have to let you guys go. I've got to do some stuff, him and I. It's a school night. You'll see this in the morning, and it'll be Friday. So happy Friday. Have a great weekend. Of course, I will be back for second breakfast in about 45 minutes from the time you're watching this. Hope to see you there. Hope we can have some interesting conversation about this or any of the topics we've gone over this week. I'd like to actually do a little bit of a recap of the week tomorrow morning. So I'll see you then for that. Have a great weekend. Love you guys. And as always, happy trails.